Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our monthly Kinetics webinar starting at 10 a.m. every month. And I'm not surprised this particular session is very well subscribed this time because the topic is Meet the New Microsoft Teams. You've probably all seen the Do you want to change to the latest version of Teams popping up in your regular Teams windows? And it's no surprise there's such an interest in this because Teams has very much become a core platform and single pane of glass that we refer to on a day-to-day basis. In many ways, for us within our organization, except for external, it's actually become the predominant way of actually communicating, getting access to apps, etc., etc. So I'm Matt Patterson, the CEO at Kinetics. I'd like to introduce you to Ben Fish, who's one of our most experienced Cambium advisors and trainers, who's going to take you through the Meet the New Teams presentation. Just a few pieces of housekeeping to run through with you. The microphones are muted. You can unmute to ask questions in the Q&A at the end. Please feel free to use the chat session in Teams and we can actually pick those things up. We've got some colleagues of ours who can pick those up and bring those to mine and Ben's attention. This session is being recorded so that you can actually share it with other team members within your organization. And we'll also post a copy of the presentation for your reference so that you can draw back to it and again use it within your organizations. So without further ado, I'll actually hand over to Ben and he can take you through the body of the presentation and really looking forward to it. Ben, good to see you and welcome.
Okay, thanks, Matt. I just wanted to add to that. I understand that potentially one of our clients from Def Aotearoa is joining today, and there may be a signer who's joining to assist them. So if that signer is present and in the session, just maybe use the raise your hand feature or post a message in the chat, and then I can make sure your video is enabled to allow you to do that, as it were. Okay, well, what's new in Teams 2.0? So this is how Microsoft are branding it, Teams 2.0. There's a wee screenshot of it there. We're going to see plenty more of it as we go through. And in fact, for most of us, we probably can switch over to it already if we wish. You may have even done that, or you may be exercising a bit of caution before doing that and wondering, by coming on this session, what's actually new, what are the differences, what should I watch out for? Okay, so first couple of bits, it's our opportunity to see what is new, not only on this session, but you can preview the new teams as well. So I'll show you how to do that if you've not come across it. And maybe you do want to have a bit of a play and a preview of it. You can try it, but still switch back to the old. Great news. The features are sort of being rolled out onto it, improvements made. So although it's live as such, the new teams, you can still switch back to the old if you find there's functionality that's not quite on par with what you would actually expect or require. And just to show you that, that's the old teams and it gives you the option to try the new teams. And there's the new teams and it gives you the option to slide back to the old teams. Okay. Just one thing to note as well, the current version of Teams is still being updated even though there's a new version available. Okay, I'm not quite sure why Microsoft have done an old thing if you're trying to push people to the new or expecting them to start using it, but that's what they're doing. Okay, so you'll probably still see some changes. That does make me ponder. Obviously, that's not me, but why do you keep updating the old when there is a new? Okay, I suppose we'd have to ask Microsoft that question. So here's a bit of Microsoft's take on the new Teams itself. Okay, it's been rebuilt from scratch. So it's actually using a completely different computer language in terms of how it's actually been built. It's a reimagining, so it's not, I suppose, new as such. In fact, if you've already gone in and looked at the new, you'll probably go, it sort of looks fairly similar-ish to the old in a lot of respects. But Microsoft call it a reimagining of Teams. It's meant to be much faster. I say meant to be because I certainly know our head honcho Andrew is in doubt about that from his experience. But I have to say, on an older computer that I did have about 6 weeks ago, before I got my new one, it was actually quite a bit faster, particularly on video calls and when sharing screens. No, so now I've got a new computer. It's a bit quicker anyway, my new computer, so I don't really care or notice that. It's meant to be a simpler, more polished, responsive user experience. Okay, so there are some differences there. I tend to see that more as a bit of a color thing, as it were. Okay, and it's more flexible. So for those of you who may, only work within your own organization on Teams, this is probably not going to make much difference. But if, like me, you work across multiple tenants, so I certainly, help clients out and work on their tenants, either as a guest or I've been given an account, it is now really straightforward to switch quickly from one to the other, which is, really handy. Now, we've got a few sort of not only what's great about the new, there's a few gotchas in there. So before you flick the switch and go in, sit back, relax, and enjoy hearing about what's new. Okay, so first thing, a big thing about new things is you generally want your new to be at least as good as the old. Okay, so commonly known as feature parity in terms of software. Just want to show you that. What is it? Yeah, well, feature parity. We've got the same things, working on the new as on the old. It works, exactly the same in expectancies. It works better, of course, so that faster and ease of switching accounts certainly falls into that bracket. Okay, now I don't know how many of you own a Tesla. I know one of my colleagues does. But if I was going to tell you, you were going to get an upgraded vehicle, and then I presented you with this, I call it a relic. It's actually a Sinclair C5. Some of you might remember those, and said, yeah, you're getting a super duper new electric vehicle. You'd probably be going, well, how is that any better than that? Okay, so Teams isn't quite like that in terms of the new, but there are definitely some things that aren't on par at the moment. Okay, so our feature parity, it's that consistency across different platforms or versions, as it were. It really is a goal of most software developers so that we can improve user experience and satisfaction. If you go from that and you go to that, you're certainly going to be getting wet when it rains, so you're not going to be too impressed. No. Microsoft say this, this is their big disclaimer when you flick that switch or before you do it, you can start experimenting with it from today, but it's still very much in progress. So that's Microsoft words. So there are some sort of feature parity things that I suppose aren't there, as it were. I have to say, even when I wrote this slide last week, I've even noticed some things that were missing last week are now there. So, it's a very quick evolvement onto feature parity between the two. Okay, in terms of feature in the new Teams, now this is what I gleaned from the Microsoft website. I won't take you through each bit because as you start to look at those, you'll go, right, okay, well, these are all things you could do in the old, hence my sort of mirrored example there. So this doesn't tell us about new features in the new Teams. It's just telling us what can we do in the new Teams. And it's pretty much most of the stuff we could do in the old Teams, of course. Now, in terms of versions, again, I updated mine a couple of days ago, as it were. You'll see there, the 14th of the 8th, that's the old version. So that's the very latest version in terms of the old. This is the newest version, again, updated on the 14th of the 8th on there. And they actually look quite alike. Okay, even though that's the old Teams, that's the new Teams. Really, there's not too much. As I look at mine on my computers, I switch between the two. That's too different on the face of things. All the same icons there, down there, slightly different color across the top and so on. But the layout of the posts is pretty much the same. One thing that's missing though is this wee panel here. So more about that as we go through. That's not available there just yet. So they do look very similar. Some of you might be coming from an older version. Maybe you don't update your Teams quite as much as me. Okay, but if you're on the latest and greatest, this one here, as it were, then you'll find that they are quite similar. Okay, so what is actually new? Um, Now, I mentioned it before, you can switch accounts easily and quickly. Okay, so this is the old Teams where you could go in and it would be a bit of a faff to actually go and switch accounts, as it were. You'd have to sign out, sign in, all this other stuff. Whereas on the new Teams, it will start listing your accounts and you can just, I call it hot switching because it's so quick. You just click on the account you want to go to. Also, there's a wee little alert that tells you if there's other activity that's going on in the other accounts that you are signed into. So I can actually see there's chat in the Kinetics account, even though I'm signed into my Cambium Partners account. So again, I don't have to, necessarily switch periodically to check. It's going to tell me. So that's much better. Even giving me an alert on my Teams icon to show that as well. So I'm less likely to miss stuff that is important. Right. We'll just take a bit of a pause on that. And why I'm taking a pause is what is new. I sort of, when I was researching this and getting everything together, I was like, well, that really is one of the main things that I can see as an end user that is new. A lot of the other stuff isn't new in just the new Teams, but there's a lot of really cool new stuff in both copies of Teams. Okay, so there's now a dark mode that you can get to from settings, new and old. There are now avatars for Microsoft Teams users. That's my best effort at making something look like me. You'll see I've probably not done a particularly great job on there, but certainly if you don't want to have your face on screen for whatever reason that may be, you can now have an avatar. In fact, you can have up to 3 different avatars and use those, and you can actually do all sorts of interactions with those as well, and gestures. I won't switch to mine now, but as you speak, the mouth of your avatar will actually move as well. So you can be quite engaged with the avatar, even though you might not want to show your face, as it were. There's now some new presenter modes for when you're in Teams as well. Okay, so like I am now, the ability to present in different ways, arrange how we view the attendees in different ways as well. Okay, and enhanced loop components. So just in case you're wondering, what is a loop component? So I'll just show you here as I come into my chat. So here's a chat that I've created, a group chat with me and the Project A team. And a loop component is this collaborative component that you can drop into any chat that you have with a colleague or a group of colleagues. Okay, so here we go. So not only can I post stuff in here, okay, my colleagues can actually go in and update it as well. They don't have to reply. They simply go and edit that content. So just bear with me, and I am going to pretend to be one of my colleagues, as it were. And you'll see as they come to the chat, they are also a member of Project A. And they can come in and see this loop component update as I update it, or is anything missing? They're going to answer that. Yes, keep it quite brief, but they can also add new questions as well. And well, there we go. Yes, no need to reply. It did that. Now, loop components have been around for a while. It's this wee icon when you're in a chat message, but these are improved. So there's just a whole lot more things you can do. Everything from bulleted lists to these quite clever Q&As that I've done there with that one, through to things like voting tables. You want people to vote on stuff, make it easy for them to do. Use a voting table. Okay. Right. Now, we can now record. I haven't seen this on mine just yet, but it's come up as being a new feature that's going to be available to us. Meetings that have dial-in participants. So for all yourselves, you've joined via the Teams link, I believe, to this. If anyone ever sort of dialed in, or if you use Teams for calling, and you were calling a number, you generally couldn't record that call, but we're going to be able to. Of course, you're going to want to warn the people that you are recording, just as Matt did at the start of the session. Okay, there's some new tools that are more for our sort of back-end people, as it were, our IT admins. So Microsoft Intune and app management tools. There's phone enhancements as well, like dynamic emergency calling. Okay, meeting recap. So this one here, where if you are recording a meeting and you're taking notes and you're adding attachments like they've got on this here, you can go into the recap and start to see those key points. It will give you pointers on timelines. Now, the real super duper version of meeting recap on top of what we're seeing here is if you actually subscribe to Teams Premium, and it will be even smarter and clever and utilize Microsoft's Copilot technology and, you know, give to-do lists and all sorts of different stuff based on the meeting. You can now drag and drop appointments in the calendar. So when I say calendar, I don't mean your Outlook calendar. I mean your calendar within Teams. So within here, you can now actually move your appointments around. You can also now put appointments in where you don't, have to invite others. You'll see on there. I can go and do that. I don't have to invite others. I don't have to make it a Teams meeting. I can drag and drop, move it around nice and easily. So it's a bit more on par with how we do stuff in Outlook, or certainly how I do stuff to maintain my calendar. So some of that is a bit more flexible. Okay. And as I pointed out there, you can add appointments without it being a team meeting. So if I come back to that one, I think I did make it a team meeting, but you'll see there's a wee simple slide there where I can say it's not going to be a team meeting, and I can slide it the other way. I probably should have done that while I was adding it versus doing it second from there as my editing option. Okay, you can now customize webinar emails. Now, this is so new. We didn't have a chance to do it for our webinar, but you'll probably find our comms, if you join future webinars, will be a bit more customized. And there's now all these options when you create a webinar in terms of the communications, where you can create specific emails, and it's right through from the attendee registration to a reminder, where you can put in your own branding, wording, etc., and make it a whole lot more about your organization or the webinar itself versus Microsoft's inbuilt ones. I think Andrew's going to be looking forward to actually utilizing those for us as he goes in and does our webinars.
Yeah, I think the next one's already been sent, but the one after will have those follow-up messages.
Yeah. Okay, so is anything different on there? So there's lots of new stuff that's coming in both versions that we've covered off there. Well, there are a few things. Speed dials. So this is probably more if you're using Teams for your sort of telephony system as well. So that's how speed dials look on the old. This is how they look on the new. Interestingly, these are both screenshots from my account, and I'm trying to work out, well, where's Barker's plumbing on my old version of Teams, because I've not got it added to speed dials. So a bit strange. I like the new layout, but I'm still curious as to why I've got something in one that's not in the other, and they're meant to just, it's meant to be one in the same thing. Also, I found it a bit of a challenge to actually add new speed dials into the new one, so hopefully they're going to get that resolved quickly. The settings are much improved, I would say. So I'm just going to show you those. If I go to my dots and settings, I just think this is a bit fresher, a bit cleaner, a bit easier to go through and follow stuff through there and change bits as well. Okay, so I pretty much like that. Also on here, you can check what version of Teams you're actually on as well. So if you do want to know that for the new one, you can certainly see that from there. In fact, mine's even more up to date than 2 days ago now. It's now the 16th of the 8th, as it were. Okay. Help is actually more clicks away. Now, I didn't put it in one of my earlier slides, but one of the big claims from Microsoft was it is now less clicks and easier to use. And of course, I tried to disprove that, and help is normally down in the bottom left of the old Teams, the wee question mark. Now on the new one, you have to go to the dots and then to help. So that's 2 clicks versus 1, but still relatively quickly to get to. But just watch out, the wee help icon at the bottom, no longer there. It will be under the dots on the new. So some of the things working a bit differently. They're maybe not quite on par just yet, but I'm sure Microsoft will resolve those bits pretty quickly. But is anything missing? Okay, so this is the option of flicking that switch back has really been a benefit to me. So contacts. This is my old version of Teams, and it shows me contacts at the top when I'm in the calls area. This is my new version. Where have my contacts gone? I can't get to them. And the bigger problem is that if I actually type a name into my old version of Teams, yeah, it looks through my Outlook contacts and it will find, generally my external contacts are in my Outlooks, clients, etc. Okay, but I can't do that on the new one. So that is a real sort of hindrance in terms of how I work. And it's quite clear to see that it is not there. Channel details option. So this is a relatively new feature, I think, in the old Teams, but it's this wee little button that's next to a channel once you're in it that allows you to quickly see membership, description, set your channel notifications, and it just doesn't exist on the new one. The button isn't there. Another one that was a big one for me is Control F when searching chat. So normally when you go and look at a chat message, so in my example, I'd clicked on Hyder's chats that me and him had. And then when I do Control F in the search box, it allows me to specifically just search Hyder's chats and put what I want to search for in and type it in. And that's just not there yet. The search there, but not that option to refine it in the way that I do. And that's just quite a big one for me, I have to say. No switches. So in case you're wondering, what are switches? So these are where you do the wee little line, the slash there, and you type in the shortcut that you want to do. So these just aren't on the new one either, or certainly not on my last check a couple of days ago. Okay, so some of these can be really handy. If you've not come across these before, by the way, just go into your search box on the old Teams, type a slash, and it will show you them. So there's all sorts of different things that you can quickly do, set your status to busy, etc. The one that I like is that slash and find, but I do it just using Control F. There's two methods for doing it. Okay. So in terms of a bit about what I sort of feel overall in terms of where Microsoft are at with the new Teams, and then we'll see about wrapping things up, as it were. Artistic impression, well, I tend to give it a 6 on there. I actually like the new look and feel of it. Like all things, it's a bit different when you go into it, but I do think it definitely looks a wee bit better than the old one, although it's not hugely different. In terms of performance, I've given it a 5. And I don't think it's hugely different. Obviously, a 5 is a high score. It's not making it sound terrible, by the way. But
well, what are you rating out of here, Ben? You better give some context.
So sorry, I should show you on this. These are the old ice skating scoreboards. So a 6 is the max you can get. Although I haven't watched ice skating for a while. So a 6, that's the max. Sorry, good point there, Matt. People are probably thinking I'm going out of 10. I'm not. 6 is the best. So you'll see a 5 out of 6 is pretty good. Okay, technical ability. Well, you've seen a couple of flaws that I've picked out that affect me and the way I work. The Control F, the fact that contacts are showing up in the calls area. So if you're using it as a phone system, I mean, that's a real hindrance to not be able to search your Outlook contacts for numbers, as it were, by name. So I've given it a 4.5 on that as well. So overall, that's giving it a 5.2 out of 6. Okay, the ice skating scores. Might not have that quite accurate. So, feel free to reach out and tell me that I don't know how to score ice skating correctly, whatever it might be. But I'm giving it a 5.2 out of 6 at the moment, which I think is pretty good because Microsoft haven't said you've got to go to the new Teams just yet. I do know later on in the year, I think it's October, they are going to start rolling it out as you deploy Office to the computer from your Microsoft 365 tenant. It is meant to be wrapped up into it from October. So it will be the new version that gets deployed versus the old. I'm not sure if there's going to be an option to switch back if you go down that route. So it might be if you've got new starters in October and their computers are being set up, they'll be on the new, possibly be no choice in it. In terms of the old, I haven't heard anything about Microsoft retiring it, or deprecating it, but I'm sure that will come. That's probably likely sometime in 2024 in terms of them starting to make announcements about it, if we've not heard anything by the end of 2023 as well. Okay, so should you switch? Should you click that button or that slider? Well, switching is risk-free. You can switch back. You saw it earlier on mine, and in fact, I'll show you on the real thing. I can always go and switch back. And when you switch back, it takes a couple of moments. Okay, so, it's no big issue to hot switch between the two pretty quickly. We'll see there we've got the button. Also quite handy when you go to that, you can actually find out a bit more about what's new as they update it. Right. Updates keep coming. So as I say, feature parity is imminent. Those bits that are missing. I think when I started drafting this session up, once Andrew and Matt told me about presenting this, I was like, oh, wow, look at all the things that are not in the new teams that I'm going to have to sort of suck up and tell people about. And gradually, as I've, got nearer today's date, it's been, oh, that's now there. That's now there. So it shows you that Microsoft are definitely actively evolving it, trying to hit that feature parity and beyond. Okay, would I switch? Okay, well, not permanently. So that fact that you've got that button to switch it on, back and forth, try it out, still go back to the old if there's things you want to do using the old version of Teams. I really appreciate that you can actually do that. So I'm glad that's there. If it comes up and says you're now switching and you'll never be able to switch back, are you sure? I might be saying no at the moment. Okay, and here's the why I wouldn't do it. It's just a reminder there. Those phone features for me are a bit of a miss, as it were. The Control F, it's surprising how much I use that to go back to content in earlier chats, and that just makes it way easier. And many of the new features that I've covered off today, they're actually in both. So if you're keeping the old one up to date, you'll find you'll see a lot of those new things coming into that as well. Okay, so a bit about what next. If you want to find out more about what's new in Teams, book a coaching session with myself, keep up to date with not only Teams, but what's going on in Microsoft 365, feel free to reach out to me. As Matt said, we're going to distribute the video recording of this, so you can pick up my details from there as well if needs be. Hi. And a bit of a highlight of what our next webinar is on. It's all around the dark web now. Okay, so we've got our blurb there with a bit more detail on it. Also, the link to actually register for it as well. What I will actually do is I will post this into the chat as well for the meeting, so you can actually get these details from there. Certainly wouldn't want people to have to type out that long URL that we get for events. So I'll do that so you've got more detail on that as well. Okay. And to round out the session, we're going to open it up to a bit of Q&A. There is the Q&A option, but feel free to, post a chat. If you can unmute your microphone, unmute as well, and let us know if you've got any questions.
Okay, feel free to, if you don't want to voice your question, to ask a question via our chat. Happy to answer those as well. While we're actually just waiting for that to come through, I will just say very informative session as usual. Ben, I also like the fact that you're prepared to put yourself out there for rating ice skating and rating software in a similar fashion. A couple of takeaways for me is obviously those follow-ups. When you're actually using Teams as a webinar, those follow-up things sound like a good new feature to be able to pick up and inform your attendees as they go. But also of Teams Premium, the idea of integrating Copilot and looking at ways which we can use AI in our everyday meetings is hugely powerful. So that's something that Kinetics will be looking into on behalf of all of our customers, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually a future webinar topic. So keep your eyes peeled for that. So in the chat, we've got Brendan asking, where does this leave Teams for work and school, which is the one that you use, not having Office 365 on all computers. Any thoughts there, Ben?
Okay, so the one that I've got is still classified as the work and school version I actually use. So as far as I'm aware, there shouldn't be any difference to that. I
Good
have heard
stuff.
what Microsoft are doing is there's maybe a version out there that's called Teams Free or Teams Home, and they are thinking of somehow sort of getting retiring that, is what I've heard, or somehow, you know, allowing or setting up or introducing a slightly different version of that can be downloaded. Yeah, at one point on Windows 11, there was an inbuilt version of Teams that was introduced, and they're actually getting rid of that, I believe. But as far as the standard work tool that we use, there's no change apart from this new Teams 2.0 version.
Looks like you covered
today.
there then, Brendan, as far as that question is concerned. Is there anything else? Any other questions from anyone else? Is there a date where the old Teams will be gone, Ben?
Okay, well, there isn't from what I can find at the moment. So I certainly looked at, right, is the old Teams being retired? Is the old Teams being deprecated? I couldn't find anything to suggest that it was. Certainly not to raise any alarm. You know, I wanted to be able to in here. I wanted to be able to go, look, they are telling you it's not going to be available to us from, you know, this particular date. But nothing that I've discovered so far myself. Okay, and I'll certainly be keeping my eye on that. Of course, you know, I keep very up to date on the Microsoft Message Center, and that's got all the info about retirements, deprecation of you know, the Microsoft products.
That's great, thank you. I think that's everyone for now. So we're a little bit over our time. Thank you for all taking time out of your busy diaries to come and look at our webinars. We hope to provide rich content, as you could see, the next one being protecting yourself from the dark web. We're looking forward to people making registrations now and giving you more information as it comes. So thanks a lot, everyone.